in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil smirking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners. Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. How is it going out there on the YouTube streets? It is time again, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is. 4K's close, highest level conversations on the most relevant topics, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and click that like button. Share the stream as you come in. Okay, because today we're going no holds barred on this conversation. I'm going to be using my moderator privileges quite often. I'm going to be interjecting and my points of view and cutting in and directing the conversation, making sure that things are straight and to the point, because we're talking about how these dusty ninjas deserve what they get. That includes you, yes, you listening. If you go into the hornet's nest, then hey, you deserve no airtime. It's a personal issue. It's your problem at this point, because everything has already been fleshed out. The landscape has already been very well delineated. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about dealing with uncultured women. Now, if you check the news amongst, let's say, Black celebrities, you're going to see a lot of divorce, Keisha doing other people wrong out there. Or it'd even be, what's her name? Is it May? Keisha May did that other guy wrong, whatever his name is that comes to mind now or doesn't come to mind. But as you come in, go ahead again. Shout out to the first in the chat, Dusty Andre representing. Okay. Now, let's get right into it. True or false, man? Let me start with LAR. Okay. You deserve what you get when you decide to marry uncultured women. Okay. Well, why? Why is that? I'm saying that it's a personal issue, that you should not get any sympathy or any airtime, because this particular issue has been discussed and highlighted in the data and everything, including voices from the community itself, since the 1970s. We all know the documentaries, right? We all know all the documentaries where the women have stated their point, and then the men also stated their point. And there's blame, at least when you go back to the 1970s, one could ascribe blame, shall we say, on both sides, okay, of the issue. So at this point, it should not be any question as to what the culture is set up for with regards to marriage, right? And I'm saying, hey, LAR, isn't it the case that Black culture is not pro-marriage? And if you are looking at a particular Black woman of a particular kind, right, and you end up marrying her, what is the surprise when things fall apart? Things can fall apart anyways, for the people out there saying, oh, but this, but that. Yes, things can fall apart no matter what. Okay, you can marry a very cultured woman, things still fall apart. But statistically, there is no news. There's nothing to be said for you as a man who went into the hornet's nest when the whole village has already delineated that there's a hornet's nest there. You get what you deserve What is your reaction to these statements I just made, LER? The culture is not pro marriage, and you go in there and you do that stuff with uncultured women. There is no news. We should not even be talking about you. It's a personal problem at this point. What are your thoughts?
I think you need to leave Joe Smith alone, okay? He didn't, he tried, okay? So, here's the thing. 9 times out of 10, if you marry somebody uncultured, you're uncultured too. So at the end of the day, you know what you're getting into because you're pretty much getting the female representation of yourself. So should anybody feel sorry for you? No. But truth be told, some people try to change, but some people lie about the change that you're trying to make. So, you know, if it goes good, it goes good. But if it goes bad, people are going to tell you you had a million red flags. So, you can't get around that. But I would say, shout out to Joe Smith. And I would also say Dwight Howard is giving him a standing ovation right now because he got the heat off of him. So that's what happens.
Now, with regards to content, I'm going to ask you something here because it also bears upon the content. When I say these men should not be given airtime, in one sense, I'm saying, hey, you get what you deserve. So what's the big deal? What's the news? But also with regards to content, okay? So let's say there's a cesspool, and then you go to the most extreme end of the cesspool, which is among celebrities, to point out certain things which are obvious and were going to happen anyways. Is there a point in doing any of that, or what are your thoughts there? Like, hey, there is no point. This stuff has been known. It's been discussed since the 70s. The people still playing in that corner of the cesspool. I mean, even Kevin Samuels would say, hey, don't bring up celebrities because that's a totally different kind of category, living a different kind of life. Again, extreme end of the cesspool. What do you think about content that focuses on celebrity breakups and pointing to them when indeed it was kind of inevitable?
I think the reason why it's relevant is because we all see it. I'm not going to say we all, but the vast majority of American society is narcissistic and delusional. So we all see ourselves as some type of celebrity in some way, shape, form, or fashion. That's why people are talking about, I need a power couple. I need to be like Beyonce and Jay-Z. And it's like, what are you talking about? We need to be like Barack and Michelle. What are you talking about? People see themselves as bigger than they are. So their relationships are bigger than they are. So, you try to see your relationship through a celebrity, you know. So unfortunately, it's what people relate to. Does it make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. You know, this person's making movies. I'm making sandwiches at Subway. We have nothing in common unless they're on a lunch break. But guess what? I see myself as the greatest Subway sandwich maker of all time. I'm like the Michael Jordan of chicken parmesan, right? So that's the problem.
Hmm.
You know, it's ego.
One more distinction on that point. So celebrity and celebrity gossip magazines, right? Back in the day when it was magazines, literal magazines, you're going out, you're checking out at the checkout line at CVS or Savon, as it used to be called, or Albertsons. I don't know where you shop, Kroger's, something, right? And you see those magazines there, and typically it's for a particular type of person, generally women and such. And I'm saying, in this space of men, I'm putting a harsher judgment on men whom see themselves in that kind of celebrity light, whom look to that particular direction, especially in a space where things are already very well understood. What are they trying to get out of it beyond voyeurism and such? So if it's voyeurism, okay, cool. Let's leave the voyeurs over there to be looking at stuff. But if they're trying to kind of highlight some kind of pain or whatever it is they have, I say, F you. I don't give a damn. And this stuff is well known. That hornet's nest is well there. We got real problems to solve. You're a man anyways. Why are you looking at the celebrity gossip section of the magazine rack? And what do you say to that?
I say men we also see ourselves in a celebrity eye. It's just probably more so athletic. So that's why at times we gravitate to what's going on with athletes and entertainers per se. You get what I'm saying? The ladies don't really. You're not going to hear ladies saying they they identify with a WNBA team. That's not their thing. But us as men, that's what we do. You see yourself in Mike Tyson. You see yourself in Floyd Mayweather. You see yourself in Muhammad Ali. A lot of times we don't say, I see myself in Bob Johnson. I see myself in Lonnie Johnson. I see myself in Robert Smith. We don't say that. We see ourselves in Deion Sanders. So we're um, fashioning ourselves in those avenues. No, you rarely hear a guy say, "Man, I see myself in Johnny Cochran." Everything, that doesn't go on like that. Or the closest I can get right now, thinking about it, is Myron Rowe. He used to play in the NFL, but he's actually a brain surgeon. We saw ourselves in Myron Rowe when he was playing football, but as a brain surgeon, whatever, man. You talking about all this neurons firing and all that? I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so
So
Eliar, I know you're a man of the people, right? In the sense that you like to talk about everybody, as you just did right now. Now, so you, Eliar, what judgments are you going to make? What value judgments are you going to make with regards to a man that does that? Is he wasting his time? Because I will tell you that what you just described is a cultural thing, in the sense that it is not in all cultures that men look at themselves through the eyes of basketball players, right? So is there something at issue with that? Do you want to separate yourself from those types of people? Do you think that it is worth mentioning critically that that type of a focus is wrongheaded?
mm, I think it's just an American norm because it might not be a global cultural thing, but it's definitely an American thing across all races. Like this is Sunday. Do you know how many people in America see themselves as somebody on one of these football teams playing today? So it's just that. Sometimes people see themselves, they don't see themselves in baseball players as much anymore, but I think that's just our American culture. People don't really like, the closest thing to getting outside that culture for the most part was being a president. But that's one of those things that's half in, half out. Like, you love him if he's on the side that you're on, but you hate him if he's not. You get what I'm saying? So, but sports is one of those things where the world could love a person, but one city could claim them. Even the rival city could hate them, but you kind of still respect them. So I think it's just an American thing. You go to
Yes.
the West Coast, it's just, you see a bunch of Hispanic people raided out. Like I ain't none of you buddies will play ever in your life. You see white kids doing it, you see Asian folks doing it. It's just, I, I don't. I think the only reason I could say that is because the only other thing we have is actually superheroes, and I think athletes and entertainers are America's closest thing to a real superhero. So
Mhm.
our frame of reference is kind of fantastical.
All right, shout out. Now, I'm not going to hold you to it, but I'm going to point out the fact that you refuse to put yourself in the middle of it, but that's to be
Oh,
expected
no,
from
no, no.
Eliar.
Hey, man, listen, man. Look, man. I see myself in a lens. I do the same thing. I'm not out of that. I see myself in fighters and other athletes. I grew up like that. The only difference may be, um, I can still see myself in a Malcolm X, or in a Farrakhan, or in a lot of different politicians. Let's just put it like that. But depending on their stories. I see myself in Fred Hampton because I'm from the same area. And so you get what I'm saying? So it's, a lot of times it's just, to me, it's just a local thing. But
Mhm.
I digress.
Yes, yes, yes. You digress indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, as you come and click that like button, please share the stream. Please share the stream where we are here saying, hey, you get what you deserve when you get with Uncultured Women. So, Dr. Thunder, let's work backwards. starting from where LAR ended, and then we'll get to the point of the hornet's nest, which has been well defined. And if you go play over there in that hornet's nest, it's not the problem of the village. It's not the problem of society. In other words, it's not something you come out and seek sympathy for and tell everybody about, because the village already put a caution tape around that, saying, "Hey, since forever, everybody knows what's going on over there. You mess up, you mess up. It's no longer other people's responsibility." The caution tape, people have already put it up. But let's go to where LAR ended. Seeing yourself, generally speaking, through the eyes of celebrities and such. An American thing, yes, that whole jock versus geek and high school focus and stuff is definitely an American thing. Now, I would say, and I don't think anyone will argue, that within Black America, it's even more so. There are historical reasons for it, the way out of the hood, if you will, through sports or entertainment and such and such. So, starting with that point there, Dr. Thunder, what kind of judgments do you give? I'm saying, hey, it is completely wrongheaded for a man to be looking at himself through the gossip section of a magazine, or to be thinking of himself that way. What are your thoughts about that, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, I'm probably different than most in that the folks that I admired were not generally regarded as celebrities. Um, so I'm a I've been as I describe it, I've been on my purpose since I was 6. Right, a lot of practicing, a lot of listening, a lot of studying those that were better at my craft than I was, and that was regardless as to if they were known or not. But many would be known if you consider like jazz in jazz. So folks like Charlie Parker and John Coltrane and Sonny Stitt and I mean Miles Davis. I mean, there's a long list of folks that made significant contributions. Now, aspects of their life were also questionable. All of those guys I just said at one point were drug addicts. I didn't emulate that aspect of their life, but I knew not to do that because my father was the one guiding me. Right. Um, I think our challenge today is um, we don't have folks, we don't have enough people sort of guiding young people to say, okay, you can, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You could look at somebody like I don't know, like a Summer Walker, and you could say, now check it out, especially before she started doing X, Y, and Z. Uh, she's talented. She can play, she plays some guitar. She's a songwriter. You can tell that she's been influenced by such and such an artist. You know, you could take them down that route, but then you could say, but check it out. This sort of bending the knee to certain cultural forces, or bending the knee to what the record company is telling her to do. Anita Baker didn't have to do that. Then you can go down the line and you can start talking about other folks. But that's only if you have somebody sort of guiding you and saying, look, this is plus, this is minus. Okay. Unfortunately, we don't really have that. And on top of that, certain this kind of dysfunction and toxicity is like synonymous with swag, right? So having certain characteristics or being um, having some questionable things, having, dabbled in some stuff that is risky, but having emerged from that, that's like considered like a good thing, right? Because now you have a story, you know, and people are interested in the story, and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a challenge with what we're facing. And I was going to say also, I think that the reason why we talk about celebrities, um, there is a very practical reason, and that is everybody knows celebrities, and so it's like you're trying to you as from a marketing perspective, you're trying to do what you need to do in order to uh, get some eyeballs, and then you can have your conversation. Hopefully, add something to the conversation that previously was missed, or go in a completely different direction where you're talking about stuff that is substantive and important, or highlighting or critiquing certain moves that folks made.
Let me
You
pause
know,
you there for a second. So you said that perhaps there is a dearth, there is a lack, inadequacy of perhaps positive examples or positive of people pushing things in a positive direction. So the celebrity highlighting typically is about pointing out negative things that's going on over there. Like say, look what happened here now. And one would argue, or I would argue, hey, how about a positive example, something that points in the direction of where you should be going? Like,
yeah,
hey,
but we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, and the reason we don't do that is because it's considered boring. I mean, I make this very same point that you're making right now all the time. How come, people like my father are not the ones getting highlighted? One that made good decisions. I mean, he grew up in abject poverty, didn't know his dad until he was an adult, and then, but put himself through school, figured out what his sort of knack was, created a certain kind of environment for his kids, still married to the same woman all this time, sucker for family activity. Um, totally. Although he's a bona fide genius, you know, uh, a member of Mensa, he walked away from that because he thought it was pretentious because he's really kind of salt of the earth kind of guy, and really non-pretentious. That he's just wasn't into that. And as soon as his kids decided to do a certain thing, he was totally fine with putting all of his energy into his kids rather than having to have some, you know, spotlight for himself, which he is skilled enough to have been able to have.
mhm.
So see why don't we highlight folks like that? Because it's boring. Because being successful as a non sort of salacious, non hey look at me kind of personality, is boring. It's all about discipline. It's about getting up every day and deciding that you're going to still stay committed to the stuff that you were going to do, or that you said you wanted to do. That you're going to keep doing this because your kids need you to keep working hard. You're going to stay faithful to the same woman. You're going to do all. I mean, look, even if she's doing right or not, you're going to still stay faithful to the same woman, right? That's boring. No, I mean, and frankly, that kind of person gets labeled as a sucker. Oh, you a sucker,
So
you
is
know?
this so okay? But however, if you to the degree to which we participate in giving them what they want, quote unquote, we're talking to a bunch of people perhaps that are not gonna go anywhere, and perhaps they're just gonna drag us down. And they're interested in BS. They're interested in gossip section magazine stuff. I find them to be disgusting as men. Okay, no surprise there. Everybody knows how I feel about shit like that. But before we continue, let me go ahead and shout out to the super chats, which are coming in hot and heavy for this very topic. Shout out to you, Carlos says, proceed, proceeds to the Dust Fund. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And then we have, I believe, Don McKee, always representing,
Uh-uh.
saying $10 to
It's
whatever
not.
kind of monkey meat sandwiches that
Isn't that
Africa's
like
eating.
McKee? Doesn't that sound like Dwight Man's surname? Anyways,
But it doesn't negate from the fact that you eat monkey meat sandwiches, and this is $10 towards that. Shout out to
yeah,
you.
shout
Shout out
out.
to the bush meat eaters out there. Okay, or it might be pygmy meat if you want to go real. If you
Hey,
want to go
the next one
real,
got it more
Oh,
accurate.
dang.
Fufu.
if you want to go pygmy meat is a delicacy. You know, that's real human stock right there. But let us
Oh,
continue. We got Jay in the building. Shout out to you with the $10. Okay, there's fufu and pepper soup. Okay, well that's okay. Okay, shout out to you. And then we have one man calling me lazy Ute in the building. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Game Changer is joining us now. Definitely. So Dr. Thunder.
There's one more. There was one more. It said another £5 with a very lazy youth.
Oh, very, very,
okay.
very
Yes.
lazy.
Yeah. Very. Very. Yes. Yes.
Very
Yes.
lazy
Yes.
Ute indeed. So, Dr. Thunder. Um, so let's go to the first point. The first point which I was making, which is saying, look, the data is out there, right? The hornet's nest has been well defined, not way before the manosphere, way, way, way before, right? Like, and we know this, and it is the case that, let's just say, and I'm using shorthand, Black culture is not pro-marriage, right? Since a particular time coming forward. Hence, if you go and you deal with uncultured women, why the hell should anybody be giving you airtime, talking about you, addressing this or addressing that, stuff that relates to you? Everything should be about getting away from the hornet's nest. Anyone who goes there is just dragging and pulling gravity into that space, continuously talking about who Keisha screwed today. So, as a man, you deserve what you get. The hornet's nest has been kind of clearly delineated. No airtime for you. What do you say about that?
Yeah. It's tricky. Okay. So now you can say that we have known that there are certain kind of folks that are risky. You probably, I mean, we Jezebel, that the idea of a Jezebel, that comes from the Bible. So that's ancient. Okay, we ancient here. Okay, so that is true. But it's also true that, and this is unlike any time in history, there's a serious attempt by the media to legitimize Jezebel, right? So to the extent that the media is attempting to legitimize Jezebel, and we know that you Dusty Ninjas are particularly susceptible to messaging
When are we gonna
propaganda
kick
from the
Dusty
media.
Ninjas in the teeth and say F you and your BS? Like, if you're still in this realm of like needing to be getting told shit 27,000 times a day about stuff that you simply should walk away from, when the hell is it just time to be like, hey, like, dude, you're wasting my time. I can tell you positively about how to, let's say in Dr. Thunder's case, find a good woman and keep a good marriage going. But if you want to keep dragging me to the cesspool of what the hell's her name, Meg the Stallion, is getting into, then look, man, you should be crushed into the dirt and buried right where you stand. What do you say to that?
So essentially, I say, yeah, it's true that if you're ignoring all of the signals, then it's likely that people are not going to. The next iteration of the same messaging is likely not going to be impactful. I agree with that. I also, but I also think about the dominance of a certain kind of messaging and its impact on kids, on children, and to the extent that there continues to be a pushback against certain behavior. I mean, if for instance, if a preacher just said, you know what, I'm going to stop talking about usual sins that people commit, then the preacher would be out of business, right? So there are certain things that you just have to keep doing, that you just have to keep saying, and no matter how old they are, people just need those constant reminders, and that messaging, as much as possible, has to be um, present, just like the propaganda is present in whatever time period by the people that you know, are the leaders, as it were. Not leaders as dubbed by necessarily by the community or dubbed by other communities, but just they are leading by, you know, their actions.
Okay.
I find it useful, um, the celebrity topics to be useful only in that everyone knows who the celebrities are. I
They
don't.
shouldn't. They shouldn't know. Well, I don't know. Now that should like if you know that kind of shit, I'm like the fuck out my
Well, yeah,
face.
yeah, but you know, well, and so, okay, okay, but here's an example. Um, Now, what we're talking about when we talk about somebody like Meg Thee Stallion, I don't care about no Meg Thee Stallion. I've been sort of forced to know who that is because of my collaboration in this space. I've been kind of forced to know who that is, and other folks, right? That's not necessarily who I'm talking about. There are going to be other celebrities that we're going to know who they are because they're celebrities. And I'd argue that although in general politicians are cut from a different kind of stock, they they're involved in all kind of foolishness also. My point here is if there's a person or a category of people that in general more people know, people just know who they are in society. I think you can use that as an advantage because you can use their failures as teachable moments. And yes, I understand that, you know, much of this information has already been the topic has already been settled, but that's just not the way that it works. I mean, you know, the purpose of a teacher or a preacher or a social critic or you know, in social commentary is to take the most prevalent, you know, topics and the prevalent people, celebrities usually, and discuss what it is that they're doing. And you don't have to stay on a sort of base low level. You can just use that as a way to frame the conversation, and then you can get into the stuff that's really important.
Okay.
So,
So uh, point taken there. So let's move real quick through Kaizo, Mr. Game Changer, and then One Man Went to Mo. So basically, Kaizo, the point is this: your issues with uncultured women is a personal issue. It is not the issue where you come out and raise a stink about it for other people to say, "Hey, look what happened to me." Because as I keep on using the analogy, you went into a hornet's nest that everybody knows about since the 1970s, and they've delineated that hornet's nest. You go in there, we have no time for you because we still got problems on the ground as men, as black men, okay, as people, quote unquote, on our purpose, if you will, on an individual level. And your individual freaking encounter with some freaking minotaur in a cave somewhere that chopped your head off, that's on you, bro. And it should not be getting any airtime, no sympathy, no nothing. What do you say about that, Kaizo?
Yeah, so I think generally my feelings towards celebrities, let's say, used as a way to express perhaps what you see in the culture. I understand Dr. Thunder's point there, right? So there is elements of that. However, of course, the audience themselves are so stuck there as opposed to analyzing it through their own lens. For example, let's say in my case, I'm a passport bro, right? I realize in the UK, I'm not going to get what I'm looking for, right? Fit, feminine, whatever all the qualities are our great guy in a suit talked about before his demise. So point is, there are simple solutions in these cases. If you go find certain culture, certain communities, certain cities, towns, landscapes, you're going to deal with whatever it is that you found there, right? This went into an African country, found exactly what I wanted. And I think one of the issues is actually us as
Is it me or is it? No, it is me.
no, it's definitely
Okay,
does.
it's him. It's him. It's him. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. Monkey Meat 5G is failing. It needs more We need more pygmy admixture into the mix there. Now, game changer. Shout out to you. Shout out to you. So
Thank you.
here is the situation, right? I'm saying, look, this situation with regards to, let's say, the black community and its, shall we say, how shall we say amenable it is to marriage has been well delineated. Okay, and I'm going to let Kaizo land this point here, but I'll finish asking you the question. Kaizo lands this point, and then you can address it. So it's been well delineated. Okay, people on an individual and a group basis know what it is. So I'm not saying that everybody is going to be perfect with regards to this. You know, people fall. Even monkeys fall from trees, as they say. Shout out to monkey meat, right? But if you're a monkey that fell from a tree, there's no news to be had there. There's nothing to be rehashed. You went there by yourself, knowing exactly what it is. You deal with an uncultured woman. You go marry Meg the Stallion. You get what you get, and all the other lesser forms of Meg the Stallions that exist all through the community. Okay, that is the question, game changer. If you can hold on, and then Kaizo, land your point, and we'll move to game changer.
Yeah, the only option is being a passport, bro. Whatever that means, right? Maybe you lived, brought up in a certain city, in a certain environment. Get yourself a passport and leave that environment, right? Even if it's just to go to a different state or situation. I think one of the other issues, there is an aspect here of escapism, right? So, you know, what happens is the audiences, you notice obviously when we make certain topics, certain content, you get more, you get more money, more likes, and more notoriety within the, this so-called community. And what that happens is these dusties, these men are leaving vicariously through us, right? So yeah, I think it's a symbiotic relationship, rather toxic one between us and them.
Well put. So game changer, floor is yours.
Okay, so I want to say, in certain situations, there isn't a such thing as an individual problem when you're dealing with a culture or a system that is set against you. Any group of people who look at problems as individual problems is doomed to fail, and that problem is destined to become your problem. For an example, if you look at a person being kidnapped into slavery, and we're talking about in the 18th century, an African tribe will be like, oh, well, that's his individual problem. He understands that, there are certain places where, they capture people and sell them to European slave traders. And then they continue to pick off members of this tribe one by one, never raising a tribal alert to combat the situation. These particular groups are doomed to fail. And then later, when colonization happens and, a European takes one particular area from a particular tribe, the other tribes will say, oh, no, that's their problem. And then, ignore it. And then European expansion takes over in almost all of Africa, save Ethiopia. This way of thinking, this hyper-individualism, is going to be the ruin of the collective. It allows you to be picked off one by one. If a person pulls an individual hair and you say, oh, it's no problem. But if the person tries to yank out every hair in your scalp, then, of course, you're going to raise the alarm. So, yeah, it's kind of like turning a group of people into a frog in a pot where, it's slowly heating up until it becomes the problem of all. And that has what's been going on in the Black community as far as relationships have been going for several decades now. We've been ignoring the problem.
Can I come for you after you finished?
That's
okay.
Are you asking me?
Yeah. So here's the issue with what you're saying, right? What you're saying is
wait, right? Brother. Are you asking me or are you asking the host?
Yeah, well, hold on one second. Before you, I was going to interject with Game Changer here. So in your analogy, you have, the slave, they're getting picked off and such and such and such. The thing is, it is a problem. It's a real problem. I'm not minimizing the problem at all. The reason why I call it an individual problem at this point is that the group has already done all it can to alert and to delineate and to give statistics and to give example after example after example. And then at some point, it's got to be your problem if you still jumped over the fence to the white man to get caught or got caught by Keisha or something. At some point, it's not saying that the problem is not a group problem. Yes, it is instantiated in the culture, but what else can the culture do, or those who are seeing it, or those who would like to improve the culture? What else are they going to do? It's been
I'll respond
said
to
since
that.
the 1970s. Go ahead.
I'll respond to that. The solution to a culture problem is a counterculture, creating creating a culture of your own that counters a predatory culture on you. Now, if you're going to create a culture, like any culture, it's not something that is just done one time. The Romans didn't become Christian because Constantine, said, "Okay, you're all Christian now," and we all know what that means. It means one God as opposed to many, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So y'all figure it out. No, it required a significant amount of change to the culture, and in their case, weekly meetings to reinforce what was going on. So it wasn't just a simple thing. We as Black men, we require a significant cultural change to counter the culture of those who attempt to, break us down, enslave, or exploit
One
us.
quick point, and then I'll see what Kaizo's interjection was. The thing about the interesting thing about this the um the relationship thing is, unfortunately or unfortunately, it's still the individual man that has to go and make this choice, right? It has to do something, and there's
A
only
culture
so
is
much
made
that
up
you
of
can
individuals.
do. Yes, but you, game changer, are gonna go out there. What am I gonna stop you? I'm gonna put your dick in a lockbox if you decide to go do something. And then if you go do that thing, am I supposed to now go, have all these, memorials about you and wasting time when I've already told you not to go there?
No, that's not what we're talking. That's not what we're talking about. Because it's a volunteer culture that I'm referring to. Not like unlike Christianity, or excuse me, Catholicism. Unlike Catholicism, during that time period, this is a volunteer culture, one not to be enforced or imposed, which is why we don't aggressively indoctrinate people into things like the manosphere or anything like that, or the red pill. It's not an aggressive thing. It is putting information out there, and those who are willing and want to join can and do.
Well put.
That's
So,
all it is.
Kaizo, yeah.
It's offering a different cultural availability to the population.
Yes, and we will address that when we get to the kind of individual points as to, okay, what is an individual man supposed to do with regards to, and Kaiser started talking about things such as moving out to a different city, understanding that you need to go to certain kinds of quote unquote conservative backgrounds with a woman with a conservative father to do that kind of a thing, and so on and so on and so on, right? That the group necessarily can only take you so far, or the culture, let's say the game changer culture, which is saying the right kinds of things and the right kinds of things, can only take you so far. But at the end of the day, if you go choose to deal with that woman, then you're on your own. But
Well, I mean, if the counterculture, if one of the tenets of the counterculture is don't deal with said women, then the culture is what's protecting that person from that thing.
correct. But at some point, that choice there, that individual choice. But Kaiser, what is your what is your interjection? And then seems like one man dropped off, and then we'll go back around again. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I noticed with Game Changers, entry is that he was focused or obsessed with thinking, and thinking that thinking is how cultures are, either successful or move forward. It's not the thinking at all; it's the doing. Right? Cultures that do shit together, like Indians, are the ones who get things done. But cultures that like to talk on YouTube about the same issue since 1970s.
So game changer, what do you say? What do you think about this doing thing? And this doing thing, I'm saying each individual man has to do something.
Mhm.
What is your thoughts on this? That the ideas, the delineation, the logic, and all that kind of stuff. Coach Greg Adams' marriage will, all kinds of conceptualizations are out there since forever. But where is the act? Each person now has to take the action, and it's not even a question about, oh, there needs to be a groundswell of massive population or proportion of people taking the right action, but that the only thing that needs to happen is people need to take action individually, because they're the ones that are going to choose where they stick their whatever in, right?
Yeah. So basically, what I'm talking about with the what people are doing online is informing others. Now, what people do with that information is up to the individual who's part of the culture. So if a person choose to, not marry or properly vet a woman prior to marriage as a result of something that they heard on the thing, in the manosphere, then that is them doing something. If a person decides to, become a passport bro or, find love outside of the West as a result of something that they heard on the manosphere, that is them doing something. I mean, in fact, every well thought out action, starts with somebody speaking before they actually act in that way. That's why wars have declarations. American gained its independence with the Declaration of Independence, and there wasn't a jackass there that said we need to be doing something. That's just, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well put, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Continue to click that like button. Continue to share. Continue to drop in those super chats. Okay, and give your commentary on this topic here. Okay, we're talking about the landscape of relationships, marriages in particular, marriages, divorce rates, and the aspect of culture. And this is not, and so far we haven't gone back to the whys. The whys are not what we're talking about here. We're just saying that, look, the way it seems, there is not a sufficiently, uh, there's not a preponderance of pro marriageness, if you will, in the Black community, right? And especially within certain kinds of circles. Okay. Now, I've kind of said, look, this is a personal problem because you have, the community or everybody else around has been doing all they can to put the caution tape around where you should not go. And if you go there, then you have yourself to blame. Okay. Now, the talking about celebrities part, um, game changer. I want to ask you your opinion on that aspect there before we move on. Um, it's been kind of clearly stated. Okay, look, celebrities. There are, you know, I'm going to bring an example even from freaking Plato's Republic. Okay, Plato's Republic. They started out talking about, hey, what is virtue in a man? And then Plato said, hey, let's look at something big. Okay, Socrates, that is. So let's look at something big rather than look at something small. Man is just one thing. So let's look at something big that everybody knows. Let's talk about the city. Okay, and let's talk about the different parts of the city and where virtue comes from, where the vice comes from. Right. So I'm going to look at a celebrity because it's a big thing. It's everybody can look at that thing. Everybody can see it. So it's a good example. And I'm saying that, look, part of the issue with the culture is a focus on quote unquote entertainment, sports, swag, and all that kind of stuff. And if to the degree to which we focus there as opposed to focusing on positive examples, shout out to Dr. Thunder's dad, for example, or some kind of a place where you're like, hey, look at these group of women over here in this conservative part where they still have fathers XYZ. What are the criteria actually? Am I even qualified? If my dusty self goes and talks to the father of one of these women, am I actually going to be kicked out, right? As opposed to focusing on the most cesspool part of the cesspool and pointing out what Keisha is doing over there. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the people that do that, and I do that, perhaps not with celebrities, because like you, I'm not really versed on modern celebrities. When I do a stream on it, it's typically like third hand, like, several other YouTubers already covered it. And then it finally gets down to me because I get my information from them. And I just give a slightly different perspective on that. But as far as what Keisha's doing, the reason why I do it is because if I want to create a counterculture, I have to alert men to what the new culture would be countering, and also inform the women of the failings of the existing culture. So it's easy to say, like, look at the failures of this particular culture. Do you want to continue to be a part of this, or would you like to join a culture that is more functional than that? So it's really just like a negative example, which is why I do it, which is why I like to focus on Keisha. And quite frankly, it's funny. I do it for my own humor and to, spread my, wonderful sense of humor to others.
All right. Let's move on to a little bit of the fallout, right? In other words, let's say you're one of these individual men whom I have sympathy for, and I say monkeys fall from trees, and I've fallen from a few trees, constantly falling from trees. After all, if you're not falling from trees, that means you're not out there doing stuff. You're not out there going out on the limb where the fruit is, and then the branch breaks and you break your back. So if you're one of these guys, you're out there, you made the wrong choice with regards to a cultured woman versus not. Okay. and something happens to you. You know what? Let's start with Dr. Thunder in this case. Okay. How do you suggest, in general terms, that men deal with this? Okay, address this problem. Okay, they got cleaned out, they got taken to court, they got all this stuff taken away, or whatever, and now there's a whole kind of back and forth with the child, and parental visitation, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. How does a man kind of pick himself up from out of that rot and then make the right decisions going forward? What are your thoughts, Dr. Thunder?
Well, CGA would say, if you made it out the first time, don't get married again. He said, look, that taught you what this is. Now learn that lesson, and don't be a sucker for love, ninja, and stay out. Okay. Now that wasn't my approach. I didn't have, and it's different. It's different too, because if I had a kid in my previous marriage, then maybe I would have said, okay, well, I got out, and let's not do the marriage thing again. Let me just focus on my kid. And, maybe that would have been the thing. CGA had 2 kids, so what is the purpose exactly of getting married again? From his perspective, I get that. From my perspective, I didn't have a kid. I wanted a kid. That was important to me. And also, I have a particular perspective on marriage, whereas I see 2 pathways to salvation. One is celibacy, and the other one is marriage. Right? So those are the options. So if I don't want to be celibate, then marriage is the option. So then, I took what I learned from getting run through the ringer, from all the negative stuff that happened, and I made a better choice. Now, is that a guarantee that it'll be perfect and great and like that? No, it's not. But that was the choice that I made. And,
how did you make a better choice?
Well,
How
I
did
met
you
her in
choose
church.
differently?
Look, the first wife, I met her at a club. Look, this is about as cliche as it can be. The first one, I met her at the club. All right. The second one, I met in church.
Okay, we're gonna need to break it down further, because I know you hear the chorus of people singing that, hey, they're all the same in church now. So we need to get down to
See,
individual
and
characteristics.
that's something. Well, but what that tells me though is that people don't have enough experience. If you can characterize a woman that is in church. Now, I'm not talking about one that you happen to meet there. I'm talking about one that was actually involved in ministry, one that believed what it was that was being said, and was walking that out. Okay, if you actually think that person is the same as somebody that you met in the street, then I think that you're not being honest. I think there's a lot of people that say that as a way to eliminate their responsibility in their selection process. Look, I can take full accountability for that. The first one, I met her at the club, and I was a young man. I was not in full control of my faculties, and she was assertive, and she was in my face, and it was flattering. And she got it. She got me. I'll just tell you, that's what happens. Okay. The second time around, I was like, okay, pump the brakes. What's going on? Let me see what's actually happening. I actually vetted even before I actually even met my wife. I asked people all kinds of questions about her. People at the church, people that work with her in a variety of capacities, pastors, ministry leaders at the church, other folks. I asked a bunch of folks, okay, and the stuff that they told me, honestly, I didn't want to talk to her because I had a policy which was you don't blow the spot up. And I worked at this church, and she was a ministry leader at the church, and I was like, that seems risky to me. So that's why I started asking a bunch of questions, because I didn't want something to potentially blow my spot up. And so,
Family
but
situation,
everything.
if I may
Go ahead.
ask you, was the family situation one of the things that you vetted? In other words, what kind of family, what's the relationship with the dad, and all those other kinds of things? Was that part of the?
Yeah. So her situation is a little different with respect to that, because by the time I met my wife, her both of her parents are deceased, and so that wasn't. But that would be something that I would tell folks. You need to consider that. You need to consider family structure. Even stuff like looking at other folks in the family and their family dynamics. All of that stuff, I think, is stuff to take a look at. What I saw, I was satisfied by the responses that I got from people. And then when we started interacting and having our conversations and things, I was like, okay, this is clearly different than me meeting somebody in a club and them approaching me basically, highly from a sexual perspective. That's how the first one went. The second one, we didn't do any of that until after we got married. It was just a totally different approach, to the marriage. And I think that made a huge difference. And if people think that those are going to tend to yield the same outcomes, I think you're not being honest. I think it's just not truthful. And I know that it is the usual thing in this space for people to act as though club girls and church girls are the same thing. And that's not to say that church girls are perfect. And it's also not to say that you couldn't have a church girl that just was in the street and just decided that now they're going to be a church girl for the last 5 minutes. But if you actually understand and know her history and have done some investigation, if she's been in the church 5 years, 10 years, and been plugging away, involved in all kinds of things in the church, that's not the same as somebody that you meet in the club. I'm sorry, it's just not. Be honest.
I would agree in the sense that, yes, when you say church girl, we must make sure that we define that as not just some body, some physical flesh in the church. Anybody could show up at the church, right? The lady you met at the club could go to the church right after the club. Many people do that. So it's not that, right? It's the fact that they are participating. They have a social network that you can then check. People like to talk about, among the game circles about, social proof and all that BS, right? But it is absolutely key to vet her socially, especially when you're going to do this marriage thing, because it's even more important for women. It's not as important for to check a man's. Perhaps let me not go there, because we're not talking about women vetting men, but for women, the social circle around her, quote unquote, the culture she comes up in, way important, because they tend to be more social and more influenced by their culture, generally speaking. So 100%, we're not just talking about church body, we're talking about church cultured person. To the point of this show, we're talking about cultured versus
Hey,
uncultured. Go ahead.
I want to respond to Ra L, who says, "Is this dude serious? The same chicks who leave the clubs at 6 in the morning are at church a couple hours later. Is he for real?" See, and this is what I'm talking about. This is part of not being honest. Either not being honest or just not having enough information about what you're talking about. That's just bogus information. That is not real information. Okay. Of course, you have people that are in church that would not be good options. I didn't say that. I didn't say that all would be good options. And I also didn't say that just because a girl's in church, even if she's a single mother, that go ahead and sign up for that. Nobody said that. So you still do have to do some investigation. What I'm saying is you're going to end up a higher percentage of the time in church finding someone that is of a certain caliber than you are in the street.
The
Okay,
social circle
and
thing that I
if you're
mentioned
not
is
if you're not
yeah.
if you're not nuanced enough and being honest enough to admit that, I don't know why you asking if I'm serious. You're the one that's not serious. Come on.
Yes, the social circle thing that I mentioned earlier, and the reason why the kind of the church thing is important because you're going to vet that person with other people who know her in some kind of an organization, right?
100%.
I mean,
100%.
it's not rocket science, or just let's not pretend to not see a point.
Okay, now here one second. I'm sorry. I got to respond to this. Rael comes back by saying, "Are these women virgins in church?" Come on, man. See, this is totally
Rael
ridiculous.
coming with the incel talking points. Like now,
Yeah, right.
now it's virginity. Come on, they don't have to be virgins. Okay, let's not pretend like, oh, it's either virgin or nothing. If you want a virgin, I know where you can get virgins for $30,000. Okay, you could go there. I know a place. It's simple. It's called a bride price in a place amongst a particular tribe where people. I mean, there are many of those tribes. I mean, if that's what you want, that's what you want, right? But I mean, come on. Um, but yes, shout out to you, Dr. Thunder, for these points that you've made. The social situation surrounding a woman and being able to vet her socially. And obviously, you have your eyes on straight. And if you're not discerning enough, then you get what you get, or you just stay away from it in general, shall I say, right? But this is about how you make the choice, not all the ways in which the choice could go wrong and everything is all screwed up. Or maybe, anyways, LAR, the question on the table is how you pick yourself back up, how you deal with the fallout. Okay. I'm saying you falling off, that's an individual problem. No one is here for you. So individually, how do you pick yourself up, LAR? Oh, yeah, by the way, shout out to Dati Gialdem with the always supportive super chat. Shout out to her. Later on, there's something that Rael said about the class thing, which we're also going to discuss, because it does have to do with this point that I keep bringing up of hashtag basketball Americans. And when is everybody going to be a basketball American? Like, or at some point, are you just going to be like, hey, I'm not going to play into this crazy swag culture, basketball American culture anymore. And I think shout out to Game Changer. He's kind of alluding to the fact that he's kind of on that lane as well, that he doesn't know these people. And at some point, you just got to kind of separate this trash from it. Anyways, LAR, how do you bounce back? How do you pick yourself up with regards to the finances, with regards to the fallout from a bad situation?
Get up and go one step at a time. I mean, boy, oh boy. A lot of what's going on, honestly, in my opinion, is people are approaching approaching a negative situation and wanting a positive outcome. So if you pick yourself up, you're going to have to do the work that it takes to get the positive outcome you want. Because a lot of times you fall off by chasing a negative thing and then want to play victim when you hit the floor. So at the end of the day, the same thing with the whole dating concept. The lie that's really rarely being told is it's your fault when you're looking for lust, but you're lying that you're looking for love. You get what you get. But people like to go on the back end and say, "Oh, I was trying to get this and that," and that's not true. So when you fall off that way, you're going to have to pick yourself up and do something differently. As far as financially, that's a motivation thing, in my opinion, because if you want to get your finances in order, some people do it for different reasons. Like, are they long term reasons, short term reasons? Is it legacy? Is it carnal? That's the issue. Like, we're dealing in a society where people don't want to be honest about their intentions, but they honestly can tell you the outcomes that they want. So same thing, like, is the club's more fun than church? I mean, honestly, neither one of them are fun. Just in my opinion, neither one of them are fun. Like, people go out to clubs and see, fine. Most people who go out are socially awkward and they don't talk to nobody anyway. They just sit there, drink, and look at people and eat wings and act like they're gonna talk to somebody and fantasize about who they're gonna sleep with that night, but normally don't approach. Most people in church act like they actually are into the religion they're in, but they don't know any. If you ask them if they read the Bible, they got to be like over 50 and scared that they go into hell and they trying to get into heaven now. If you're younger, probably you just there clapping, hallelujah, praise God. You ducking when the tithe, when a collection plate come by, and you low key looking around to see who look cute. So a lot of this stuff is just people are lying and then want to act like they're telling the truth. I say from my perspective, because I've been in both places. I've seen how it goes down. A lot of people just don't want to be honest about their intentions, but they want to be honest about the outcomes. That's just my opinion. I'm done.
There you go. There you go. There you go. Indeed. I want to and shout out to the Dusty Chinaman zone in the building. Shout out to the Dusty Chinaman. Go ahead and like the stream, share the stream, subscribe to this channel if you have not already subscribed. Case closed 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. We got an all-star panel talking about the most, relevant topics with the highest level type of conversations in this space, ladies and gentlemen. So, Kaizo, let's address Rael's point. Okay.
Can I say something? Can I say something again? I'm sorry for jumping in like this. Rael's is wild. this bro wild. It's like this stuff. Right. This Negro wild. I mean, you really think that you can have sex with women in church easier than club chicks?
I guess it depends on the kind of church.
Oh,
you
man.
No. See, here's the thing. If you can spot the difference between who is really about action, you can. It's just a seasonal thing. Same thing with clubs. If you go to a club, you know when somebody's really, if you're paying attention, you know who really just wants a one night stand. Same thing with church. If you go at the right time of year, listen, man. What it's this is November. Christmas is coming. They're gonna have a little single mother tree for the gifts to give to their kids. New Year's is coming. After that, what happens? Valentine's Day is coming. And guess what? You're gonna have the girls wearing white, red, and pink. And guess what single guys gonna do? Show up. They used to call people CME Christians. Christmas, Mother's Day, and Easter. They show up on certain times of year to get certain times because they know certain women are looking for somebody at that time of year. They're not gonna be there every Sunday. You're not gonna catch them on, just a random August. It's not gonna happen. But Christmas, New Year's, Easter, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, I guarantee you, all the players who ran out of luck at the club, that's what they're gonna show up to.
Okay, so Kaizo, part of my point here in saying that something is an individual problem is to kind of create perhaps what you might call a class distinction between people whom can see a sign, read a caution tape, understand what's been going on since the 1970s, and make a right decision, versus the people whom are going to constantly be talking about Meg the Stallion and how these chicks don't just want to act right. and on and on and on and on and on. Okay. Now, if you can see Rael here stating something which is nothing new in this space, talking about class distinction and such, may or may never happen. But what are your thoughts about this type of separation where you say, okay, at some point, I'm going to stop having a dusty symbiotic relationship with people who want to just gleam off of celebrity junk? Shout out to O'Shea. And I'm going to perhaps put a more positive message out there. Positive meaning the kind of thing that Dr. Thunder just said, for example. Here's where you go. Here's how you vet. Here's what you do. And if you fall off, here are the kinds of things that you pick yourself up from, and so on, so that people can start seeing themselves as not necessarily beholden to what's going on in the cesspool, but rise above it. What are your thoughts about what I just said and what Rael has on the screen, Kaizo?
Okay, so I'll try to summarize what you said and add my perspective all at once. So if it gets convoluted, well, sorry about that. But I think I think there's a couple things here, right? So if you are someone who likes celebrity junk, and not just likes it, but your spirit is somehow like inculcated into it, then I think ultimately it is what it is, right? But at the same time, I ask these people this few questions: Is talking about Keisha going to change Keisha's mind in a reasonable time frame that is going to affect your specific life? Because this is an emotional attachment to Keisha and the conversation. It's not really about yourself when you already know that there is no solution in your timeline by talking to Keisha, right? So you already know that negotiations aren't going to end in your benefit in your timeline. So if that's the case, or you're just emotionally connected, hoping, right? You're high on hopium, then why don't you go find a solution for yourself? And also focus on things, right? Build a community around men who focus on things that will actually give them leverage over anyone else, if including Keisha, right? So I guess for me, I'm kind of thinking there's a blindness going on where people just can't see what they really want, and the fact that they are this is reactionary. It's an emotional thing that they're attached to, right? I know what it is, right? Keisha is a girl who rejected you when you guys were 12. Keisha is the one who started behaving in a way that you didn't like, and all that stuff, right? And now you just feel some crazy toxic attachment to her. So I guess what I'm trying to say is simple. The men who know what's up will go get themselves the kind of women from the kinds of environments that allow them to lead her the way that he values. They exist around the world, right? We don't live on postcodes. We live on a global geopolitical space, right? That's one. Two, if you're just attached to Keisha and the brokenness of what she did to you, right, scarifications and stuff, mental scars, then you're lost. And I think you just have to accept that, and that's fine. And third, the grifters. I think there's nothing wrong with grifting, man. I think at the end of the day, as long as the grifters don't get lost in the mud.
Yeah. And okay, yeah, well put, well put. And I have no issue with the last point you made there regarding, grifters. I'm speaking to individual men and quote unquote what you call their spirit, right? And to understand that, well, if I to speak for myself to this individual men, that to the degree to which your spirit is caught up in that whole Keisha voyeurism, you're a piece of shit. Like, again, your spirit, right? Like this is not anything that's respected anywhere outside that little cesspool that you call Keisha culture, right? There's nowhere else amongst men where any of that kind of crap is taken seriously. You're just another freaking guy picking up freaking People magazine, and reading about whatever the hell the latest celebrity did, and it's not going to take you anywhere. We live in a global competitive world. You're not going to recreate your own little paradise where you can just do what you want and it has no effect on how people see you or the value that you can bring to them. Shout out to you, game changer. Okay, you're like a sweater vest and tie wearing. You literally wore a sweater vest and a tie when we met, I believe.
Yes, I did.
He's Carlton from
Totally, 100%. He's a cartoon with let me not describe game because
I'm taller than Carlton, but yeah, dress pattern.
Yeah. I think
very similar. Yes.
You don't want people to know exactly who you are, so I'm not going to describe everything.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So and yeah,
I just thought it was I just thought it was a chess piece over there, the shadow one, not even the white one.
It was a shadow of a chess piece. Um, so, and yeah, we'll probably do another meetup. We gotta catch up again and have a steak or something.
Yeah, let me know
Now,
next time you're in the Bay.
okay.
Okay.
So here is the situation here regarding Rael's comment about kind of a class distinction thing. You kind of do this thing where you're out there making fun, having a good time, and that kind of stuff, using a particular type of a cultural artifact, if you will, right?
I do.
But at
Yeah.
the same time, you got this vest and tie on and such. How do you parse this issue here? I'm not going to even make it a question, right? Because you already see what we're saying. You saw Rael's comment. You heard what Kaizo said. The idea of class separation, and is nothing new. How do you parse this, both personally and also from a, shall we say, conceptual or idea standpoint? And you often, for example, talk about the fact that TV is one of the big issues with African American culture, which it is the case statistically that African Americans watch way more TV than others. So how does one do this? What are your judgments regarding what is bad here? What should be moved away from, and how individual men should perhaps not consider themselves completely beholden to the worst parts of a culture, like, oh, it's just a black thing, or that this is what we do, that kind of a thing. Go ahead.
Okay, so as it stands, the wrong people are defining what Black culture is. If you look at it from a freedom perspective and a historical perspective, Black culture, and by that I mean African American culture, not African culture, which is far older than ours, is really only 150 years old. Or 160 years old. It's very new as a free people, so it still hasn't been completely defined as what it is. Now, unfortunately, we have people who are, while the definition of Black culture is being written, they're writing it to their advantage. And this is, people who want to turn it into a consumer culture for, products that they produce. And, various other things. People want to turn it into a simp culture or a matriarchy, where the women are in charge and the men submit to the women. People have their own designs, and they are essentially taking advantage of the youth, and by that I mean the cultural youth, a culture that is not rooted like the Chinese, or in your case, as you described earlier, the Europeans, whose cultural belief system, they could reach back all the way to Socrates, to 500, no, I think it was 400 BCE. We don't have that advantage, which means that others are trying to take advantage. And I'm saying, since our culture is developing, let's work to develop it into something that is more functional. Now, in understanding the hierarchy of needs, in order to get to a place of enlightenment, others have to, in order to get to a place of enlightenment, you have to take care of some of the base concerns in order for you and other people in your culture to excel. And which is why I do what I do when I'm not wearing a sweater vest and things like that. But it's the same way. I mean, people are dynamic. They're not just pigeonholed into one thing. At least certain intelligent people are. A lot of people can't leave their own stereotype and have a dynamic personality. They can't be more than a nerd or an athlete or Keisha or Ray or anything like that. They can only be one thing, and every aspect of their personality bends to that one thing. That's not necessarily the case with me, which is why I can do multiple things that seem to not be related. And the reason for that is because I do see a need and concern for others, who may not have the same culture as me, but they definitely are from the same de facto tribe that I'm in.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want you to chime in a little bit on the thing that on the positive aspects. In other words, the aspects about who to avoid, whom to move towards, and how to do this kind of vetting. Dr. Thunder has already kind of started out by saying there's a certain set of social circumstances that are important. I find that to be perhaps one of the most important things, in the sense that the reason why we talk about having a good relationship with her father, and coming from seeing what her aunts, where did her aunts and her mom end up, and her dad, and all these other kinds of things. It's because women are that way. This is not a negative thing about women. It's just that if you look at what that whole thing about this you're the average of the five people around you, but women tend to definitely be the average of the five most influential people around them growing up culturally and all these other kinds of things. And that's why they keep saying things like, oh, we were told to, my mom told me to get this and don't need no man. That's why I'm doing it. And I think they're actually right. I don't think they're lying when they say that they were influenced by people around them. So, game changer, your thoughts about what Dr. Thunder said, okay, and Rael's pushback and whatnot, and how you would see this type of vetting and whom to avoid. And then we'll also, Kaiser, want your take on that. Go ahead, game changer.
It's definitely an individual thing. And that's because, of course, men have differing intelligence, but also men have varied intelligence, like a various type of intelligence. For example, Dr. Thunder is definitely someone who's more adept at music than I am. He's more in tune with his spirituality than I am. So his path to find the person that is right for him is going to be very different than mine's and Ike's, who's more analytical and perhaps likely are not as spiritual. So it is individual, but I mean, in discussing the problem, what I found is that modern men tend to not have had a vetting process at all, meaning that a woman need only a functioning vagina and a willingness to share it in order to get wifed. That is something that we need to move away from and start to at least have a vetting process that's catered to each individual man. Now, there is something, and yeah, there is some truth to what Rael had to say, and that is that women do use religion as not a place for genuine piety, but for a place to look for men whose value system is written in the Bible, while theirs is not. That is a true thing. We can trust in Dr. Thunder's intelligence and judgment to weed out those type of women. I mean, because that's in the end, that's what it eventually is going to come down to, whether it's in church or in a club. I mean, the vetting process is an individual thing because men are individuals. Now, as far as learning from the mistake, which prompted the conversation between Dr. Thunder and Rael, I think that, and this is where I slightly disagree with Ike. I think that learning from one's own mistakes is the worst way to learn anything. It's the worst possible way because it requires that you first make a mistake. The Trojans, yeah, they know not to accept a big wooden horse from Greeks now. But I mean, they kind of learned the hard way and it's too late now. However, the best way to learn is from everybody else. Every other Mediterranean civilization learned, like, hey, you might want to check them horses if the Greeks sent it. Like everywhere else learned. They never pulled that crap again because they couldn't, because people learn from the mistakes of others. And this is the convenience of literacy and, keeping accurate historical information so you don't fall for the same thing again. Learning from the experiences of others is a much more effective way to learn anything. And it gives you a distinct advantage over those who have not. They're destined to fall for the mistakes of others because they are not as versed. So the reason why I'm saying that is because what I do, at least here in the manosphere, like I said, I'm a dynamic person. It's not what I do outside of the manosphere, but what I do here in the manosphere is give people the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of others, whether it's a celebrity, and really they're just more visible. So, their information and lifestyle is out there, which is probably why people use them as examples and templates. But, learn from their mistakes, learn from their mishaps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you do not have to face it alone. I don't want a man to have 5 wives and 6 illegitimate kids or 6 kids that he's paying child support on before he realizes the error of his ways. I like for him to see the other man do that and then realize the error of that man's ways.
Well put, well put. I know Dr. Thunder would definitely agree with you on that. That is one of his talking points, as they say, regarding learning from other people's mistakes being the best way to go. Now, real quick before we go back to Dr. Thunder, Kaiser, what are your thoughts about Dr. Thunder's kind of like vetting tactics, and what do you have to say? Now, you've already kind of implicitly said some certain things regarding action going somewhere, right? But if you were to give it in terms of a list to somebody, how to vet, what to do, where to go, what do you say? I mean, you already said it. You might just be repeating yourself, but go ahead real quick.
Yeah, I mean, okay, there's nothing wrong with a church, but obviously, given the current landscape, church
You
can
went,
also be.
you went to a mosque. In other words, it's the same thing, right? It's
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
yeah, it's the same freaking, whether it's a church or whatever. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Here's the thing, right? Even the bad girl, Muslim girl, she's still like, being indoctrinated into a culture where there's a belief in certain things. Man is a ruler, man is the leader, etc. So no matter how bad they are, generally speaking, obviously, they already have these what we call values that we value in so-called manosphere instilled in them. So when you go to let's say a very conservative culture, you take even the worst apple. Again, we're not talking about character. That's a separate thing, right? We're talking about liberality and all that stuff. Still better than what you have in the West, even in the conservative one. So I just say, either go to a small, dusty, boony town in America, go to Europe, right? I'm talking about East Europe, right? And not the war-torn area, but just go to East Europe. They actually like black men, especially because of the dollar. People don't seem to understand this, right? And this is what gets me almost annoyed, right? It's like, bro, you're making at least $40,000 a year, right? I know you're Black American, slavery and stuff, but $40,000 goes far in the rest of the world. Go to East Europe where they're making $3,000 a year. Like, I'm not saying Ukraine right now, but same abstraction. Romania exists, Hungary exists, right? $3,000 a year a person's making. You're coming in with $40,000. You don't even have to leave with her into America because that's because of the issues, right? Stay there with her 5 years, build a kid, build a relationship, then bring her over, right? You can go to Africa if you want some black-looking woman, etc. I'm just saying, being stuck in this whole Keisha stuff is insane to me. I just don't see it, right? Technically I'm a black Brit, right? I left that dusty UK country, went to Africa, found myself a Muslim, right? And hey, look, apart from the usual human shit, I'm not getting a Keisha treatment. There's no disrespect, none of that BS. So yeah, I just say go find what works, right? But at the end of the day, look, stop looking at a lens through America. America is a dusty shit hole in the world. The rest of the world with your dollars. Right now, how much am I making? I'm making like $300 a month
So
on
for
YouTube.
dollars, but
Right.
what are the expectations? I want to ask you this real quick about the expectations in the sense that, look, um,
You'll get everything you want.
yeah, but
Let
what
me not.
you are going to be expected to do certain things as a man, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a
So
50-50 relationship.
great point. Great point. Yeah, yeah. So you will get everything you want, right? But are you willing to do what they want, right? For example, in Africa, or rather even East Europe culture, man does everything. That means you will pay for everything. This whole idea of feminism that's corrupted your mindset, thinking equality or pseudo equality is a good thing. Nah, you're responsible for the kids, all the stuff. I don't need to mention them: tuition, food, house, everything. She will listen to you. She will do what you say at the end of the day, right? But you got to do your end of the part as well. You can't be out here crying, talking about your feelings. You can do that if you want. I'm just saying that's not the environment that you're coming in. So yes, there is a caveat there. If that's a deal breaker, then stay in America, complain about Keisha, or hope for Keisha, reform Keisha. But yeah, just last point, Ike. For me, I make $300 a month on YouTube, and that's enough for me to sustain myself here. Uh, I'm joking. You need at least $1,000 a month, right? If you're going to live in Africa, but realistically, you need $3,000 a month if you want to live good. But you have to have an income. So I suggest 1,500 a month. Again, I'm talking to the dusties out there, right? 1,500 a month should be enough to sustain you.
Shout out to one man. Shout out
Does
to
Keisha's
one.
lady? Oh, I apologize.
What did you say about Keisha? I'm sorry.
No, I was just asking if Africa has any Keishas.
Yes,
Oh
yes.
yeah, especially in Nairobi.
Yeah, I live in
No.
Nairobi, right? Yeah.
No, I met Kenyan girls here, and yes, they turned Keisha real quick. But
Yep.
but no, the reason why I'm asking is because what efforts are being made to assure that their culture don't devolve as ours did?
There are, like, I don't know if you know Andrew Kibe, probably one of the sort of the biggest African Kevin Samuels. type. Very different, but that's how people know him as. He's actually gained so much popularity here. There is actually a strong, let's say, pro-man movement already, because look, for us, it's just Nairobi, right? The rest of the
So it's not
cities, or
useless.
say it again.
I mean, how come the things that you were saying earlier, like it's just talk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, don't really apply to this gentleman that you were referring to in Nairobi?
Well, look, because he actually has classes. That's one. He actually teaches men how to make money. Most of the conversations are about, don't get a girlfriend.
Look, I think
Get
it is
rich.
useless. I think you avoid women from Nairobi. I think that this
Yes,
guy there
avoid
is
them.
just making YouTube and making money.
It's just
Whatever.
bias.
You're not gonna change Nairobi bitches.
Well, but he
Yeah.
would protect the men from that, and
No, okay.
A classic.
Go ahead.
which
It's
is
a
what he's
classic
doing.
case if it's cool if you do it, but it's a problem enough if I do it.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, LAR. That's what I was, trying to suss out of him. But yeah, that's what it seems
Okay,
like.
in my
Like,
case, I did
because
not get
he's
it.
the savior of Kenya. He's the savior of turning Nairobi women into Keisha. But everybody in the manosphere is just pissing in the wind, and they have been since the 70s. That's essentially what you're getting at.
Well, okay, for here the conversation's been here for like 5 years. So if it stays as long as the 70s, and that's a broken conversation, right? There's context there as well, time, complexities. But even in my case, right, I didn't go for a Nairobi woman. I imported my woman all the way from the dusty side of Kenya in Marsabit, right, the the desert, and that's why it's working out great. If you deal with a Nairobi whore, it's not going to work out well for you.
And then
How long does it take before the dust of Nairobi gets on a woman from the provinces?
Wait. Let me just as I hate to do it, but I got to do it. I think the issue becomes, so when it's your culture, it's it's not really that big of a deal. But when it's my culture, it's the forefront of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, we're not over there when it's in your culture. So just can at some point people admit this is human culture. It just happens to be that in America, I guess we're the entertainment capital of the world, so people will look at us harder. But what goes on here goes on everywhere.
fair point.
That is true. I mean,
yeah. I mean, to some degree. I mean, I think all of us would admit that there are certain things that are in a later stage of rot here than perhaps other places. But yeah, we're still dealing with human nature, and when you eliminate certain consequences and you eliminate certain structures and you promote promiscuity and liberation and all that kind of stuff, it tends to have a similar impact on human beings.
I think the issue becomes, just in my opinion, American excellence and arrogance combined, in a sense of we look at ourselves as the superpower, and the world kind of looks at us and runs through us. So we don't see the rest of the world as competition. But that being said, we see the debauchery in other communities. We just don't we don't put it on Front Street because we're not there. But if you talk to any American who's been abroad, whether that's just military or business, they can tell you all kinds of shenanigans that go on in all different in all different continents. That's normalized in their culture.
Well, I think that we don't really care as much because we're not doomed to follow, because their culture don't influence ours as much as ours influence theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I was asking, like, what do we do about the Keisha problem? Because these rural Kenyan girls are not influencing Keisha in a positive way, but Keisha can influence this rural Kenyan girl in a negative way. So, I mean, the influence is going one way. It's moving from west to south or west to east or wherever, and they're, while criticizing the efforts that Western men are making against it, we're making this effort so you don't have to. That should be respected.
From the West African perspective, you see Kenya, Nairobi is like a lost cause. That whole place there is just it doesn't even make any sense to me.
Well, I've never
Now,
been. I mean, in all fairness,
yeah.
I've never been to West Africa.
Mhm.
I did date for a long time a West African girl who had me watch some Nollywood movies. And in addition to being crap, it does seem as if they are influencing women towards feminism through movies, through media.
100%.
So
100%.
it's happening. It's happening. But instead of for stopping it from happening to your sons, what's going on is you're criticizing those who are attempting to stop it from the source, or at least prepare men against it. I don't get that.
Here's the thing about these dusty Nigerians is that
Okay.
from a from a cultural perspective, the marriage thing being still less than 1% divorce rate, right? The
Mhm.
women there still heavily police themselves. And if you let it get to the point where here's what I would say with regards to prescription for handling it. It needs to what this dusty Kenyan guy is doing, that's already too late. It needs to be women doing it because it's women that keep other women in check, let's say in Nigeria
Women that
and
create
such.
and watch these crappy Nollywood movies.
Yeah, but they still don't divorce for some freaking reason.
Okay, okay,
This,
but no, please
I got a
understand. Please
question.
understand. I mean, well, right quick, because this goes back to what Dr. Thunder and I were saying about learning from the mistakes of others. It wasn't a black problem till it was a black problem. You think
Mhm.
that we didn't have healthy families prior to what we have now? And you think that there weren't some Ike in the 60s and 70s that says, oh yeah, black people will never turn into that. We have strong marriages. We hardly ever divorce. We divorced less than white people at the time. Like you think that they didn't say that?
Mhm.
That's what
Okay.
I was about to ask in the question of, as far as not divorcing, does it mean that people are actually not divorcing and staying together, or does it mean that people are just separating but staying married?
So there is a lot of the whole, things are not great. Uh, there's problems. Maybe there's fighting and such. But they're married. They're a couple. The family unit stays together. The kids live with them and all that kind of stuff. And yes, there's a whole lot of side chicking and all that kind of stuff going on. But it's not part of the quote unquote marriage business. You kind of look at marriage as okay, you've gone into this thing. Granted, things might go wrong, but you're not gonna come out of it. And typically that works out best for the kids.
No, it don't.
Okay. I mean, I get
No, it
it, but
don't.
there doesn't seem to be an
I
effort.
think it does work out best for the kid.
No,
Like,
no,
No,
no.
it
I,
does.
I
It
get what
does. I'm not belittling that. What I'm saying is it doesn't seem to be an effort um, from West and East Africans to stop the problems that are on the horizon. They're on the horizon that we as Americans face, we as Black Americans face. Problems that you all are particularly susceptible to because one, both Kenyans and Nigerians speak English, which means that our media influence can hit harder there, a lot harder. A movie or something, Color Purple, Waiting to Exhale don't require translations. They could just get it and relate a lot easier than, say Brazil or something like that. So this is a problem that's on the horizon, but instead of doing anything about it, or at least alarming the men to the problem, alarming the monkey to the broken branch that will make them fall, instead you're telling others not to alarm each other.
Let me say something real quick to get this out the way. When I mean it doesn't help, you basically create a underbelly of resentment. So you're saying we're together, but it may be some side chicking going on, but we're under marriage, and this is for the kids. And 9 times out of 10, parents ain't good cheaters in front of their kids. So what you basically letting the kids know, oh, okay, you could be the closest person to me, and I could do you dirty. So
LAR,
so
you think people were never saints, LAR?
well,
All this
I'm
this
not
stuff.
I'm not saying that people are saints, but what I'm saying is, if you raise in a household that does that, you might as well assume the next generation is going to think they can get close to somebody and do them dirty. Now, what goes on in your household with your family affects you and your family. But when you take that to another family, you create enemies.
Yeah,
See,
that's true. I don't disagree with the point that it would be destructive and negative for kids to see their parents cheating, and that behavior would likely be when they face a challenge that'll be in the repertoire, right? That'll be something that they've seen. Say, well, let me try this, and even if they don't purpose to do it, it might be something they could fall into. I get that, but still, when you look at all of the studies on this topic, which would necessarily include people that stay together and maybe they're not happy and maybe they have a girlfriend on the side or a boyfriend on the side or whatever it is, it's still better for the kids as a general statistic. Is still much better for the kids for the parents to stay together to tough it out.
1 second,
And
guys.
go ahead.
Roughly what I'm saying is that whole setup is one of the pillars of feminism, especially the modern feminism today.
What pillar? What are we? Were you stay married?
No. Granddad was married and had a family across town, but we were together and and they got done dirty. And but grandma had to stay. But now that you got a job, you don't have to take it.
Let me
Right,
let me
right.
let,
You're
yeah,
right.
let me
You're
let
right.
me say that it's almost like there's complete. Now this is something I'm saying from experience, right? In other words, I kind of lived through it. I had a certain set of ideals, if you will, and then when you come over to the United States, you see that there's a certain set of expectations which are very Disneyfied. In other words, we never thought of family as some kind. First of all, it's extended family, right? So it's not just mom and dad, right? So there's a whole vast network of people, right? That family, they stay together. Mom and dad is the nucleus, right? With regards to your individual family. But also, it was never supposed to be some kind of utopia. And the things that happened, that those guys across the street or whatever, was never judged in a particular way, as in like, oh, it's not perfect. When I came over here is when I started hearing people saying things like, oh, if the parents are not happy, then somehow going to pass on to the kids, and that's not good. And it's better off to separate. No, and I'm not trying to even make light of it. It was actually a new thing for me to hear
you
that
you
kind
should
of notion.
you should
Um,
make love. That is hogwash.
so, but here's the thing though. It might be the case that, hey, being over there that works, but if you come over here and
Yeah,
you're
I
trying
mean,
to
like
make that it
these
will affect the kids over here.
yeah, these are Disney Americans, right? So that's why for them they have that same.
Just the Americans.
I mean, and look, it's not. I'm not just talking about Nigeria, right? You could go to Saudi Arabia, you could go to Yemen, you could go wherever. All these places. These are not like where it's like, oh, it's perfect. All these people over there that just stay married are somehow living the good life. No, they're human beings, but the
Right,
institution stays solid. That
right.
that is
But
kind
it's
of like
And
biblical.
that
Okay, wait,
benefits
hang
the
on, hang
kids.
on,
It's
guys. There is
biblical.
one thing on
It's
this
not
side.
American. It's biblical. What happens when you have side babies? It's biblical. What happens to the families when you have all this stuff? It's biblical. This ain't just an American thing. It's
Yeah,
biblical.
but I would like to add
Yeah.
something here. It's like Coach Greg Adams usually talk about sexless marriages. You won't get that in Kenya. There's no incels in Kenya, as in zero. Women here are more, than the men. So, I'm not exaggerating at all. There's no such thing in
That
Kenya.
was an incel polo in that picture. That was an incel polo. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think he was in the UK back then, right?
Yeah,
Um.
exactly. That's when I was in the cell in the UK.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Um.
We,
LAR. I don't think you got a chance to talk about that kind of a vetting thing, and then we'll go to Dr. Thunder, and then we'll start kind of rounding up. Any thoughts about this kind of a vetting thing? You mentioned how you pick yourself up, right, both financially and otherwise. Talk about the motivation and all those other kinds of things. But when it comes to vetting, any thoughts about what has been said so far with regards to Dr. Thunder and Game Changer and whatnot?
I changed in the fact of I think you need to vet yourself before you vet somebody else now. Because like I said before, people's intentions, if you're not honest with yourself about what you want and what you're looking for, you're wasting your time vetting somebody else. That's why you see all of this. What do you call it? Ambiguity. When you see all this, people with double talking. I want this, but I want this. They want things diametrically opposed because they're too afraid to say what they really want. But they're trying to say, what the politically correct thing to get what they think they want. So if you want a thought, it's okay. If that's who I am, I like that. But people ain't trying to say that because now you got burned too many times by that, figuratively and literally. And now you want to say, I want something better than that, but I still want the sex of a thought. So you're wasting your time.
Yeah, that's called slow pimp.
Yeah, it's like,
it's a Madonna whore thing. I mean, we actually want both, but I think the best way to put that, LOR, is we want a lady on the streets and a freak in the bed.
No, but see, that's the thing. And well, let me be petty now. Why do we want a lady in the streets? Because most of people are socially awkward and they are not in the streets anymore. These people ain't going outside.
By the streets, I just mean in public.
I know, I get what you're saying, but these people ain't going outside. These some Call of Duty, 30 years old, still playing Roblox kind of people. These are not people who are outside.
I'm not talking about like a particular straw man. I'm talking about like in general, that's what men want.
I'm saying that, but I'm saying society has changed.
Okay.
You wanted a lady in the streets because you were active in your city. Now we're dealing with people who are inactive in their city.
I got you.
Now you might want a lady in Instagram and a freak in the sheets, but you don't necessarily want a lady in the streets. You get what I'm saying? Like we've changed. This is something different.
I don't think that the gentlemen that you're describing, have conflicting desires. I think that they just want a freak.
That's my point.
Yeah.
If they just want a freak, they do have conflicting desires because they don't want to say it. Because let's just be honest. Commitment doesn't come with a freak. Marriage doesn't come with a freak. Family doesn't come with a freak. That's just things that might happen that you're not necessarily looking for.
Right, because that shouldn't be the priority in that setup anyway. Because that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for the stability thing. Yeah.
What we're dealing with is a bunch of people who 10 years ago wanted their girlfriend to have a girlfriend and it didn't work out too well, so now they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna start wrapping up. Okay. This was a vibrant and active conversation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the comments. Shout out to Rael getting wild in the chat. He got burned by church ladies, and he's not having it. He is not having it.
Some holy water and penicillin.
So one thing I wanted to say about the church girl thing. So obviously we know that there are Decepticons. There's folks that are there for nefarious purpose. Those that tried everything else and that didn't work. So now let me try this holy thing. They're not really holy, but let me try that. We know that exists. And even amongst folks that have been indoctrinated well, not as a pejorative, but as a positive, they still are going to have certain tendencies and certain frailties. And so so it's not like you're not going to find people with many of the usual sort of qualities, which are negative, the things that you don't want. So you're going to still see those people. You're going to still find those people. And matter of fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I did a video because got a lot of views for my channel, saying, "Here's why I'll never direct music in a black church again." And I was going in on all kinds of aspects of church leadership and everything else, in the black church. So I know that those qualities exist, and we also know that if you yourself are a manipulator and you understand what it is that people are looking for, and you pretend as if you are that, yeah, you can take advantage of folks. To LAR's point about, hey, it's cuffing season, or it's about to be Valentine's Day, or it's about to be whatever. Yeah, you could go in and you could take advantage. But that's not what my point was about. My point was about, you're serious, you're looking for something, a certain kind of thing. In our society, in the West, where does that exist the most? Not that it is abundant, but where does it exist the most? And if you and I'd argue that it exists more in abundance. There's more of it, rather, in church than there is in the club. And that's the, and that's a pretty low level claim, but that was my point.
Mhm.
And because my own motives were not suspect, like I wasn't trying to find some women that would be easy to screw over. That wasn't my agenda. My agenda was, okay, I'm looking for a certain kind of woman that I think will be a great mother, that'll be a great wife, someone that'll be loyal, trustworthy, dependable, X, Y, and Z, someone that has a Christian worldview, someone that has, certain kinds of relationships and demonstrated themselves to be a certain kind of thing. And so I asked questions to people that were around her, that knew her, to clear up if that was the kind of person that she was. Now, that still didn't mean that, okay, now that that's the case, that it's going to work out. And it doesn't mean that it's a guarantee that everything is going to be great in a marriage with somebody that you vetted that way. But that's way better than saying, hey, but she got ass though. And, that's basically what we do. Oh, she looks good, man. So then I'm straight. That ain't going to do it. Maybe at one point in time you could do that with a higher percentage chance of getting lucky. But the last time I checked, the Bible describes a virtuous woman as being something that is rare, and that's been throughout time. A good woman is rare, not in abundance. It is rare. So, just saying.
Just saying, indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are gonna start getting final thoughts. Okay, we'll start with Game Changer, and then we'll go to LAR, and then we'll wrap up with Dr. Thunder. Okay, we've been talking about the individual problem, as I define it, of going into the hornet's nest. That, hey, if you're gonna marry Meg the Stallion, then it's not really news when stuff happens to you. And at this point, the community perhaps has done enough. Game Changer has done enough telling you what to avoid. And you can't come back to him and say, "Hey, look up this other case study of what this she just did to me." Well, it's at this point it is on you, says I, right? And then we went through
Hey,
and talked about. Go ahead.
I've got to get going, so I'll just say this last thing, and then I'm going to split. One thing that we didn't say is, in this sort of latest round of sort of breakups and things, the woman was the more prominent celebrity. Okay, So, for instance, Meg the Stallion, Partisan Fontaine, right? So, not a lot of folks know who Fontaine is, but a whole lot of folks know who Meg the Stallion. Um, and even in the case with Megan Good and her ex-husband, everybody knew who she was. Not as many knew who he was. In the case of what's her name, Kiki Palmer, and her dude, ex dude or whatever, folks know who she was, didn't know who he was. Or in the case of Tia Mowry, same sort of situation. And one thing I think uh, is is that is similar about all of these is we heard at least cryptic messages on recordings or outright open messaging through social media by all of these women and their sort of negative description, even if they didn't call them by name, of their relationship. Tia Maurer saying that she graduated from marriage. Even Summer Walker and her dude, same sort of situation, right? But we didn't hear anything from the guys. And almost all of those dudes refused to even say anything. And I think that it's likely a good move that they didn't say anything, right? Because they probably would have got drugged. But then the second thing is, nobody cares what is going to care what they think, because because of the sort of just because of the who they were in a relationship with. So anyhow, that's all I got. Y'all have a good one. Pick better. Probably picking somebody that's a celebrity is probably not a good idea. And picking somebody in the street probably ain't good either. You also got to look at these church girls with a side eye. So good luck. See y'all later.
Thanks.
Good luck indeed. See y'all later indeed. So we're going to start with you, Game Changer. And shout out to you, by the way. It's so always a pleasure. And you, seems like Kaizo dropped off. But you guys are kind of cut from the same cloth. I don't know if you know that from the outside looking in. But
I don't. No, I should say I didn't. I've never eaten monkey or Mississippi dirt. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure we have some things in common. It's all good.
Shout out to Chilani. Chilani is she's some kind of dusty East African Muslim, a virtuous woman, but she's already taken. I guess she recently got snatched up by somebody, so she's no longer in the market. But she's saying you should go for character. She says that looks fade. Okay, I don't know. But anyways, Game Changer. You see what we've talked about. We talked about, hey, if you get with uncultured women, you're going to get certain kind of uncultured outcomes. And this is about, again, the transaction of marriage. And by transaction, I mean the institution of marriage. And whether or not a culture and a culture of women or a cultured woman has kind of that ingrained in her. Perhaps in even as dysfunctional a way as the Nigerians do, where they just don't divorce no matter what happens, right? And I think I like that notion. I grew up in it, and things were always, no one was perfect, but still, it was not the idea that perfection was the name of this game, anyways. And I still disagree with the notion that human beings in general, that's kids in general, it may be the case that, hey, if you expect Disney, then the kids are going to be ruined by anything other than Disney. But if you don't expect Disney, right, as is the case over in West Africa, kids are just fine, right? Like, hey, and also it comes from a culture where polygamy is also kind of there. It's adjacent to it. And men will be men and women will be women. Just kind of understood that chaos is chaos. Think people are messy. But when it comes to this institution, we're going to dig it out and we're going to have a less than 1% divorce rate, right? Now, Game Changer, with regards to everything that has been said, from the, hey, is it good to focus on basketball and Keisha, all the way down to, well, whom should you be focusing on when it comes to vetting a woman, picking a woman? Is it at the mosque? Is it at the church? What kind of the characteristics? What's this kind of social circle vetting that should be done? All the way down to this kind of thing, which I call an individual problem of like, hey, the family, the group, the Black community of men whom are pointing these things out have pointed out enough. If you fall in that hole, hey man, it's on you. And maybe it's time for those of us who are not going to be falling in the hole to just kind of compare notes on the positive aspects as we're supposed to keep on talking about the negative things. Anything you got to say, plus closing thoughts and whatever. Shout out to you, Game Changer.
Okay, thank you. All right, so on the last thing, listen, people who want to fall off, fall off. I mean, and they fall off simply by not listening to or embracing the message. There really isn't a reason to silence the messenger if a person doesn't enjoy the message. For example, I don't watch football or basketball, but I don't see a reason to protest or make an attempt to end the NFL or the NBA. This is just something that I'm not into, so I don't enjoy it. Those who are into such a thing, they have a culture that's completely separate than mine, separate than my sweater vest culture, which is perfectly fine. I allow it to live. There is a very interesting reason that that those who disagree with, people who speak out against feminism or Black feminism, whatever you want to call it, are attempting to silence us. And the reason for that is current culture, existing culture, has a way of protecting itself, as all cultures do. Cultures go through extraordinary means to protect itself from invading culture or problems or changes within the existing culture to where it drifts into something else, which is why we had things like the Crusades and things like that. Over time, people change cultures. There's been wars fought over if the god of thunder is Jupiter or Zeus. I mean, not directly, but you know what I mean by that. So it's very important because culture is what sustains people over an extended period of time. Now, in creating one, and in my case, what I'm doing is I'm creating one that protects the men within the culture from predatory women. Now, in doing so, I have to be aware that there were men who were raised in this culture that don't want to see it change much for the men within it. However, they do want to see it change for themselves. I don't know why that exists, but unfortunately it does. What people people of that thinking fail to understand is that there is a domino effect. And it's, yes, you can solve the problem temporarily by changing cultures. However, cultures expand. For an example, if you have like a imperial-minded civilization, like say the Romans or something like that, or China or something, or the Hun, the Mongolians. What tends to happen is they invade a place, and then that place moves to another place. The people of that place move to another place, but eventually, they will expand their empire to you. They will expand this particular culture to Nairobi. Nairobi is the capital. They're going to expand to the provinces, just given the opportunity. If it is not stopped, eventually these people have to be stopped. They will. I mean, that's how empires work. They expand indefinitely until somebody has the strength to stop them and the willingness to do so. Not just say that this is somebody else's problem. Like, oh yeah, this is the Chinese problem until it's no longer the Chinese problem. Then, oh yeah, but this is the Indians' problem until it's no longer the Indians' problem. This is the Arabians' problem. This is how things expand. You got to put a stop to it. And saying that this is somebody else's problem, that this is an individual thing, that's really just a form of evading it for a generation. And then there's another thing that Kaizo and Ike really spoke on, and this is about the whole, I haven't seen the results. I mean, and of course, cultural change. Men are significantly different than we were, 60 years ago. But I haven't seen the impact of the change, and these discussions have been had for since the 1970s. But I mean, philosophy, I mean, you talked about Socrates, you know, like he was, like I said, 400 BCE, and, you know, and he died by Greek hands. He was executed by Greek hands, but, you know, his philosophy lived on and shaped the Greek structure for quite some time. It was over 60 years to where, you know, his influence inspired people like Alexander the Great, who of course wasn't Greek, but, you know, to under Hellenic, culture, he did make significant strides that I don't have to repeat. So there is reasons that people do this, and the Greeks, you know, to go back to Socrates, as you were stating, the Greeks have a saying, and that is, civilization thrives when old men plant trees that whose shade they will never appreciate. That's all we're doing here. At least that's all I'm doing here. You know, yes, the information that I set forth today for others is not going to help me in my own personal dealings with Keisha, which is not as problematic as one might think, and many is, but it's not going to really help me because it's not for me. I already have the information myself. It is for others, and it's for the future with any philosophy and culture.
Well put. Can't disagree with that. I cannot disagree with any of the points. Definitely, when I say individual problem, I am saying all the things that you imply, which is, yes, it is pushing things outside to perhaps a different generation to deal with. It is very, very much pragmatic and tactical, and very much very narrowly time bound. 100%. The best you can hope for from the last thing you said is a reaction video that says, "Game Changer claims that he and Manosphere are Socrates. He is Jesus. He will save the future generations." And when you said predatory women, I could not help but just imagine fat women with sharp teeth, kind of in line with your.
Prey on my penis, yes.
All right. Shout out to you. So LAR, you got the last word. And one point I want to make here, maybe said like a little side point regarding the whole kind of a vetting thing, and which is Jelani's comment about personality brought it to mind. And you guys should go check out one of my videos recently that I did on the whole MBTI personality system, right? If you're not familiar with it, start there and then move on from there. In the sense that if you know, I'm not saying, oh, there's this kind of astrology type BS of the right type of person and you guys mesh. No, it's just that there's certain cognitive functions that people have. Let's say, for example, both Game Changer and LAR are gonna care more about the group than I ever will. And this is fixed in personality, right? So if I know this about myself and I know this about Game Changer, I'm going to avoid all kinds of arguments with him because I know he's going to be coming from a particular perspective. And I don't have to butt heads with him like, no, but it's just, it is what it is. This thing is very important when it comes to these like relationships, you know, with your significant other, right? I found somebody that has certain things that I mesh with, and I know where the kind of incongruency is, so I don't go butting heads over there, right? So understanding your personality type, introvert versus extrovert, are you a feeler versus a thinker? Are you intuitive versus a sensor? And all these other types of things. You value, okay, extroverted feeling, the group harmony and all those kind of things, or do you have it as a blind spot, as I do, versus the person that your partner is going to be a huge help to understanding or to making things work, generally speaking. Anyways, LAR,
Can I say something right quick?
Go ahead.
Just real quick. To Chelani's point, a man shouldn't have to choose. I hate it when women, in particular, say, you know, looks or personality. A woman should have both. And I understand that genetics is genetics, and some, you know, there is a certain level to where a woman's looks is fixed. However, outside of that, a woman should always look her best and have her best personality. The extent in which she's willing to do that really shows the respect of her mate, whether it's present or potential.
Yeah, and women often do that stuff. But shout out to Shani. She is you know, fit, feminine, and all that good stuff. Actually, she's actually not a bad. Hey, I'm talking about somebody's wife, so I'll shut up. But LAR, you got the final word.
Okay, this is about to go bad. You talked about the Disneyland thing, right? About kids could grow up just fine. The backlash from that is what? Nigerians stereotype as globally being scammers. So if you're lying in your house, and in the world sees you're lying to your family, and then you go out in the world, you're lying to everybody else. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. It starts at home. It just starts at home. That's all I'm trying to say. But as far as like vetting people and getting together, I'm gonna go back to this statement of, we're not being honest about who we are. And what drives this home for me is you are the algorithm that's on your phone now. But are you looking to be tied to what's in your algorithm on your phone? See how we talk about, when people are talking about something that has substance, people don't show up. But then when it's all shenanigans, people show up. Well, that's what you're looking for. That's what's on your phone. So don't turn around and make a 180 now that you're stuck in the situation that you gravitate to. It's nobody else's fault at this point. See, everybody, like the internet and algorithms has given you the opportunity to see yourself with everything that you watch, because people are going, oh, you might like this, you might like this, you might like this. This is obviously what you like. So the same thing is going for your dating practices, because you see young people saying, I like something trifling. You're seeing old people saying, I don't like trifling stuff anymore. So the common denominator is what? You trifling. So if you don't I don't understand, like, if you're going to go down, if you pray for rain, you got to deal with the mud too. We got to stop acting like, I can't be touched by the negativity that I gravitate to. You're the common denominator. I'm sorry. I'm done.
No. You're good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another great episode of Case Closed. Every Sunday, come through, set your calendar, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That'll be 1 p.m. over here in the West Coast, where I sometimes be at. And shout out to Game Changer, LAR, Dr. Thunder, Kaizorian Empire. And until next time, peace. We are gone.
In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons will breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Travel by night and I travel by day. Feel the breeze, I feel the call. And I see the gravel and the grass by the way. I hear birds and their mating call. The toll on the road is a small price to pay. a small price to pay for the saving of the race. And so I say, yeah. People, what you waiting for?